The Minnesota Vikings just got a massive boost on their team. A boost that could make a massive impact by season's end. And I don't think we can overlook this decision by the Minnesota Vikings to activate this player. This player was actually on my podcast this past summer. He reached out to me saying thanks because I complimented him and said the Minnesota Vikings should make him come back or sign him, and I don't quite understand why they haven't done that yet. And then I reached out to him, said, hey, would you join my podcast? And he said, yeah, I would love to. So Dalton Risner is activated on the Minnesota Vikings roster. He's not a part of the 53-man yet, or I'm not sure really how that works. But anyways, he has a designation to return to play, and he's got like a 21-day window where he can practice or play or whatever. I don't quite understand how all of that nuanced stuff works. But regardless, there is a chance for Dalton Risner to replace Minnesota Vikings right guard Ed Ingram. And should he replace Ed Ingram? Well, the answer is not that hard to figure out because you take a look at these statistics, and Ed Ingram clearly has massive problems on the Minnesota Vikings offensive line. These are Dalton Risner's statistics throughout his entire career. His pass blocking grade of 67.4, 72.6, 73.6, 69, and 69. Nice. And then his run blocking statistics aren't as good. 50 run blocking, 53 in 2022, 63 in 2021, 2020 53.7, and 2019 60.3. So he's clearly a better pass blocker than he is a run blocker. But let's take a look at Ed Ingram's statistics in 2024 and beyond. 2024, his pass blocking, 29.4. Are you kidding me? This is awful. And his run blocking statistic is better at 62.2. In 2023, 59.1, his run blocking stat, and his pass blocking statistic was 60.9. In 2022, his pass blocking stat was 44.4. So his pass blocking stat goes up, it goes down, it's all over the place. It's inconsistent. And his run blocking statistic has been consistent at 63.4. So these two players don't even compare to each other. And here's another stat per PFF. Ed Ingram this season ranks 76th in pass blocking out of all right guards this year. Out of 78 qualifying guards. Pressure 17, tied for 73rd. Sacks, he's given up 3, tied for 71st. So Ed Ingram ranks in the bottom 7 of each pass blocking statistic this season out of 78 qualifying guards. There's no way the Minnesota Vikings should pass up this opportunity to not start Dalton Risner. And I get it. I get there's got to be communication and there's a chemistry on the offensive line and so on and so forth. But last year, Dalton Risner had no issue stepping in for Ezra Cleveland. Ezra Cleveland goes down, he gets injured. Minnesota Vikings start Dalton Risner next to Christian Darrisaw and Garrett Bradbury. And Risner fit in seamlessly. He stepped right in and gave up 0 sacks last year. Why couldn't he do the same right next to Garrett Bradbury and right next to Brian O'Neill? So I understand there's chemistry on the offensive line, but Dalton Risner proved that he can fit in without having any issues whatsoever. In fact, the Minnesota Vikings gambled last year and traded Ezra Cleveland to the Jacksonville Jaguars because they believed that Dalton Risner was good enough to replace him. So they shipped him over to Jacksonville. And he was awesome for the Minnesota Vikings last season. And I had like I mentioned, Risner on my podcast last offseason, and I asked him a question. I asked him, how do you root for your teammates and also, like, hope for yourself, right? Like, how do you not root for your teammates to fail so that you can play? Because isn't that a natural thing in all of our minds where, like, you see a guy struggle at your position and you kind of grin your teeth a little bit because then it means you're going to have a chance to play. Everyone wants to play. No one wants to be a backup. So I asked him about that. Take a look at his answer.
And mindset going to be as you enter training camp, because you want to make your teammates better, and no one technically roots for other guys to fail, right? But at the same time,
if I've learned anything, Tim, you can't root for other guys to fail, and I mean that from the bottom of my heart. But you're a realist, and what you're saying is true. I'm not going to sit on this podcast and tell you I don't want to start.
Right.
I don't play this game of football to sit on the sideline.
Right.
But I'll tell you this out of honesty. I got a lot of respect for Ed Ingram, and I got a lot of respect for Blake Brandel. If you knew both of their stories and everything about them, man, you would respect them too. And maybe you already respect them, but I want to get that on the record. I have the utmost respect for Ed Ingram and Blake Brandel. Those dudes are awesome. They're pros. Whenever I come in, they welcome me with open arms. They know it's a battle, but they're not treating me different. So I got a lot of respect for those cats. My approach is I want to go in there and help the Minnesota Vikings win. That doesn't mean I'm not going to give every ounce of my effort to prove what Dalton Risner is about. I want to be a starter for the 6th year in the NFL, but I have to realize that it is not my call at the end of the day. So whatever's decided, whether Chris Cooper decides it, Kevin O'Connell, Kwesi, whoever decides who the guards are this year, I have to respect that, right? So I can't go in and say, this is what's going to happen. This is what I know is going to happen. All I can tell you is I left that facility 4 months ago as the starter, and I'm a second string now. And unfortunately, I'm used to being a second string because I showed up last year and I was a second string. So I have to handle that. I have to be a man about it. I have to realize that I'm late to the party. And those guys have earned dibs to get those shots with the ones. So I'm going to put my head down. I'm going to be a good teammate. I'm going to work hard. I'm going to see what happens at the end of the day. And if it's starter, great. Let's go kick some ass and have a great year and do our thing. If it's not a starter, it's the same mentality, next man up. Last year, Chicago Bears, Ezra Cleveland goes down. I need to fill in. I go in and I start the rest of the year. I need to be prepared to do that same thing this year. So that's kind of where I put my head.
So Dalton Risner said it himself. He's not rooting for his teammates to fail, but he's got to be prepared. He's got to be ready for when that time comes. And he did it sensationally last year. And it's hard not to believe that time won't come. Like, how does he not get an opportunity when you look at what Ed Ingram has done this year? And I don't know what has made Sam Darnold get dinged up a little bit. Like, he took a big shot against the Jets. Was that because Ed Ingram missed a block? I'm not really sure. But there could be an opportunity this year where Ed Ingram gets blown by a defensive tackle again and dings up Sam Darnold. And did the Minnesota Vikings really want to risk that? Do they really want to risk a pass blocking right guard with a grade right now of 29.4, ranks in the bottom 7 of qualifying right guards this season, playing offensive line in the NFL? It's not that hard of a decision. The Minnesota Vikings need to make that switch eventually this year to protect the quarterback that has resurrected his career with the Minnesota Vikings. And also, one more side note, I think I need to take that Dalton Risner clip where he says, Tim, you're a realist and you understand what's going to happen or whatever, something like that. I think I got to take that clip and put it into my sound bar and play that on every single controversial take that I have moving forward. So, everyone, thank you for listening. Hit that subscribe button right there, and thanks for making this podcast part of your day.